Hey everyone, and welcome back to Joey's Retro Newscast, where I go over the top news of the last week in retro handhelds, retro gaming, and just gaming in general. The big news of this week is obviously the Retroid Pocket 5 and Mini news, and we basically have all of the information at this point. I hope. I'm making some guesses because this is coming out on Friday, I'm recording it on Thursday, and we're going to talk a little bit about all of the Retroid news. But there is a bunch of other news as well, and we're going to spend some time on that first. Friend of the show Gamma, who is known for Gamma OS, has released a list of his backlog of what he's working on. And so here's the gist of it. The next devices to receive Gamma OS are the RG556 and the Cube from Anbernic, as well as the Ioneo Pocket S and Ioneo Pocket Air, and the ZPG A1 Unicorn. His next update of Gamma OS will also include the RG405M and V, RG505, Powkitty X28, and the KTR1. The rest of the devices on the list are going to receive Gamma Core at some point, which is the lightweight version of Android, and it's Android TV. And Gamma's been developing that for a while. It's basically meant to be Android for devices that are Linux only. Personally, I've been waiting a long while for Gamma OS on the RG556 and Cube, so it's awesome to see that those are next up. But Gamma has a lot on his plate, so hopefully he can get it all done. Jumping over into device news now, and Powkitty just released a new low-cost RGB 10X device, and this is a 4:3 aspect ratio, 3.5-inch screen, RK3326, which we're going to talk about a lot today. And it's just a normal kind of budget device. There's no other features, no video output, no Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi, none of that. It's a $40 device, and it is kind of made like that. This is basically a 2020 retro handheld in 2024 and at a budget price. That is exactly what you're getting here. It's a low-cost option for anybody that just doesn't want to buy a clone, doesn't want to buy cheap AliExpress stuff, doesn't want to buy a MagicX, and just wants to buy a good handheld, let's say. I ordered one. We'll see what it is when I get it. If it's worth anything, if it's bad, if it's good, who knows? We'll see. But I ordered one, so I'll have a review whenever I come back from vacation. Okay, so we're going to talk about the biggest news of the week besides the Retroid releases, and that is all about MagicX. And I'm really tired of giving them exposure at this point because I don't think they deserve it. And I don't think they're going to like this segment, but we're going to talk all about what happened with MagicX this week and all of the drama that I'm sure you've seen. Let's back up a little bit, and we'll talk about the MagicX XU10 that came out last year, and it was advertised as having the RK3326S processor. And then it came out, and it was delivered, and it ended up having the RK3326 processor. Now, nobody cared. We didn't really know what the S meant at that point, and I think a lot of us just assumed it was an overclock, and so nobody really made any fuss about it. It was something that just happened and didn't really seem to affect much, and also not a lot of people bought the XU10, so it wasn't like there was enough people out there to really complain about it. It was just something that happened, and then we moved on. I also think something happened with the RAM. I think it was advertised as DDR4 RAM and then ended up being DDR3, but don't quote me on that one. I don't remember that one, but I do remember the chip. Anyways, fast forward to now, and MagicX released their new device, the XU Mini, and it was advertised as having the RK3562 processor. And I'm sure a lot of people bought it based on that fact. Ended up being thanks to Gamma, once again, for finding out that it actually has an RK3326 processor. So just a case of the wrong processor inside of the device. And it's a good deal less powerful. So this is a scenario of fool me once, fool me twice. Naturally, everybody reached out to MagicX, and they had a statement and a bunch of statements, and basically said that this was due to their manufacturer, factory, whoever was handling the software and hardware, since it was a combination deal, and they scammed them and kind of passed off the blame to them and said that it was their fault. And we don't know if that's true or not, but if we hold them at their word, it was the manufacturer's fault. Whoever made it, their problem, they caused this, they're doing it. And then offered some solutions for people. The first is a $15 coupon off of their next handheld. The second is a $9 refund off of this one. You don't get the option of a full refund because I've tried and I went through AliExpress. The best that they offered me was 20% off, and then I'm doing a chargeback now to get my money back. But there's no full refund. And Ampone, who is the seller of this device, doesn't even know about any of this. If you go and look at the AliExpress page, it still says RK3562, which tells me a few different things. Number one, nobody's taking this seriously. Number two, they're still trying to either scam people or I don't even know. I don't know what the purpose is of not changing that immediately or removing it from the page and saying waiting for confirmation, something like that. But none of this feels good. This feels slimy in a weird way. Now look, remove MagicX from this equation. Replace them with Anbernic, Powkitty, Retroid, AYN, any of those companies. You go and order a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor device, and it arrives with a Snapdragon 865 device. The first thing you would be doing is finding the nearest way to get a chargeback or a return done. The second thing you would be doing is joining the absolute shitstorm that would be happening online because of what happened. It really doesn't matter who's at fault here. I don't care if it's MagicX. I don't care if it was their dog. I don't care if it was their cat. I don't care if it was their mother. It doesn't matter who's at fault here. The consumer is buying your product. You are putting out a product with X specs. If you don't meet those specs and you deliver on something different than those specs, you are offering a full refund. There is no other option. There is no other explanation there. You either offer a free refund or you fix it. You get the right chip in there and then send out replacement devices. And I get that everybody wants to be like, oh, this is how Chinese companies work. This is how the retro handheld games work and all that sort of thing. And my answer to that is, yeah, maybe if you've been here for a while, but that doesn't mean it's the right way. It doesn't mean it's how it should be. It is not how it works in the rest of the world. So no, I'm not going to donate $50 of my own money to a company that can't get their shit together for whatever reason twice, not just once. First, you can give the benefit of the doubt. Twice is a pattern. Transactions like this are very simple. You release specs, you put the specs on the page, we pre-order or order based on those specs, and if something changes between all of that, then you are no longer honoring the contract. You have broken that contract. And I am not a charity to just give you money to support your business when you're scamming people. And again, it goes back to, even if MagicX themselves were scammed, then you have to eat this. You have to offer full refunds. There is no other option here. Now, I do need to point out something important. MagicX, the company, is trying to offer full returns with some kind of conditions. You can't have it disassembled, there's no damage or scratches, the packaging and accessories are complete, the return location is Hong Kong, and you're going to be shipping it yourself, and they will subsidize the shipping fee by $10, but it is going to cost you more than $10 to do so. Now, when I talk about full return and refund, I do not mean outside of AliExpress, outside of PayPal, and outside of their purchase protections, because that is exactly what this is. This is not through AliExpress or PayPal. You give up all of those protections if you go this route instead. This feels slimy, and I get that they're trying to do whatever they think is the right thing here, but the right thing is to offer it through AliExpress and through PayPal. However you bought it. And I shouldn't have to go searching on a random Discord to find this single message, because if I wasn't in this community, I would never have known that this was happening or this was a possibility, and I would be scammed using their device and not know any of this. So, when I talk about full refund and full return and all of that, I mean it through AliExpress, through PayPal, not this sort of random message on a Discord. This is not the right way to do things. And look, if I come across as angry, it's because I am. I paid $50 of my own money for this product. I bought it based off the fact of the specs that I thought I was getting. I reviewed it based off of that. None of this feels good to me. None of this should feel good to any consumer. I am in that consumer boat for this product. So yeah, no, there is no defending this course. There is no, on my end, nothing as far as a defense goes for this. And look, I get it. There is a cult-like thing happening with this company right now just because they are on Discord and have a rep and they are saying words and all that sort of thing. And there is a movement of some sort because of that. But if you are supporting a company like this and this is what they are doing twice, then I don't even want you watching the video. I don't even want you in my comments. That is not the person that I want supporting this hobby. The worst part about this hobby is I feel like no matter what reviews come out for a device, no matter what is said about a company, no matter what they do, they get away with it. And that doesn't feel good at all. Anyways, let's move on. I'm done with MagicX, I think. I already said I wasn't going to be reviewing any more of their devices. This just solidifies that. We'll see if I continue to report on them. Anbernic is showing off the RG406V, which we teased last week when we saw the box with the fake writing on it and all that sort of thing. And so we knew this one was coming, and we also know that the RG Cube XX will be coming most likely next month or the month after, because that was leaked as well. But anyways, it looks like it's the RG405V shell, and the internals are going to be what's changing. I'm hoping they fix the triggers on the back as well, because those were really easy to push. But other than that, I mean, the 405V was pretty good. No, I'm not going to complain too much about it. This looks like it has the 960 by 720p display, and it's a 4-inch screen, so better than the 480p that they're used to. And it's supposed to have the T820 chip inside. Now, the T820 is the same that they use in the RG556 and the Cube, so a good deal better, more powerful than the RG405V was. Now, one thing that the 405V didn't have is display out, and they are advertising this as having display out. Now, I don't know if that means charging and video out at the same time, because the 556 and the Cube did not. I'm willing to bet it is the same scenario here, but we'll find out more later. Now look, I haven't received my RG40XX-V yet. And now we have this already announced and coming out. It is getting to that point where, like, I know I've said this so many different times and I'm rehashing it here, but like, I don't even know what to do anymore. Like, by the time I get to a point where I can review these devices, they are already replaced. And does it even matter at that point? Does a review matter a month after it's out and shipped and in people's hands? And this is a me problem. I don't get devices from Anbernic directly anymore for different reasons, but I don't know. So I'm going to review the V at some point when I get it. And I'm going to review this at some point when I get it. And maybe they'll have a 407V by the time I get to that review. And do you see what I mean? It is very tough for me as a reviewer to even care at this point, because no matter what I say, no matter what I do, the product is already out and released, and you could buy it before I even review it. Nothing that I put in a video is going to help you if you bought it before my review comes out. So yeah, it's tough. Acer is joining the handheld craze with the Nitro Blaze 7. It's going to have a 7-inch 1080p, 144Hz screen with variable refresh rate and a landscape display. It has the newer Ryzen 7 8840HS processor. There is 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 50 watt-hour battery, and it also comes with up to 2 terabytes of storage. There is 2 USB 4 ports, so eGPU support, which is great, and another one for charging, of course. There is no price or release date or anything else yet. Okay, so my initial thoughts are the same as every other of these that have come out recently. And the Asus ROG Ally X kind of ate everybody's lunch on this. The 80 watt-hour battery in that, and the pricing, because these other devices have been coming out in that same price range as the X, it makes it tough to look at anything else when you know how much better the X is on a software front, on a hardware front, on all of that. And a lot of these other devices are having better screens or other changes that make them a little bit better in other ways and that sort of thing. But if you look at it from a whole perspective, a total package of a device, the X is the handheld to beat in the Windows space. And I think if we can get to a point where all of these handhelds have 80 watt hour batteries, that'll make things very interesting. But in the 40 to 50 watt hour battery range, it's tough. It's very tough to recommend in the current climate when the X exists. Now, I'm personally very curious to test out the 8840HS and also see the 144 Hz screen on a handheld, which is cool. So we'll take a look at this whenever I can. Okay, so the big news of the day is obviously the Retroid Pocket 5 and mini announcements and specs and all of that. And this is a lot more than we had access to last week on last week's show. So we have a lot more information, and I'm sure at this point we have price. So I'm going to go over all of the information I know now. Then I'm going to come back and we'll talk about price because I'm filming this on Thursday and the price isn't out yet, but I know it's coming at some point later tonight. So once it does, we'll come back and we'll talk about pricing, but for now, let's talk about everything else. First, we're going to talk about the Retroid Pocket 5, and it has a Snapdragon 865 CPU, 5.5-inch 1080p AMOLED 16:9 display, video output, 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and size-wise, it is pretty close to the Odin 2 Mini. Now, everybody is wondering, what is the difference between the Snapdragon 865 compared to the Dimensity 1100? Because you go and look at benchmarks and they're pretty close, so it doesn't tell the whole story though. The real answer is that it is better in pretty much every single way, but not a substantial difference. It is better in a lot of smaller ways. So for example, PS2 games will have some better compatibility where you had to make some hacks and changes to the Mali side on GPUs to get certain games to run better. Snapdragon helps that in a lot of different ways. And that's the same thing on the 3DS side as well for just compatibility and all that. Another benefit is on the HD texture pack side. You couldn't use DDS resource packs on Mali GPUs like the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro and all of that. You had to use PNGs. On Snapdragons, you can use DDS resource packs, so that helps you with compatibility for HD texture packs. Frame rate wise, you should get some decent bumps across the board. It won't be something that will be massively noticeable, but it depends on the game. Some games will suddenly run where they didn't, especially in the case of Switch emulation, where having a Snapdragon CPU with custom drivers now opens up the world to a whole bunch of games that didn't run before or that didn't run that well before. So it is a big upgrade for Switch at least. Lastly, of course, there is battery efficiency and just battery life in general. Both of those should be improved. Yeah, there is some benefits here to the Snapdragon. It isn't a massive benefit like it was from a 3 or 3 Plus to the 4 Pro, but it is still an upgrade. And I think that leads me into my overall thoughts about the 5, and I think it just didn't need to exist just yet. I would have been fine waiting for a bigger upgrade at a similar price point as what they're hitting here. I get it. There is some good upgrades here. There is OLED, it is Snapdragon, there is better upgrades. It probably feels better in the hands, all of that sort of thing. But I just don't know if it was something they needed to do right away. And I think they could have waited a little bit longer because the Mini seems to be, what's the right word for this? The Mini seems to be a better purchase in a lot of different ways, especially if you own a Retroid Pocket 4 Pro already. It is tough to go and buy a $200 US handheld and then jump to this one for incremental upgrades. And I'm saying incremental, and I don't mean to be negative in any way, because obviously this is going to be a great handheld. I'm sure it will be. But overall, if you look at the 4 Pro compared to the 5, it is incremental. It isn't a massive upgrade, and that depends on who's looking at it, I guess. But if I'm looking at it from my perspective, it doesn't look like it that way. But either way, I think if you don't have a 4 Pro and you've been eyeing one, and I think this is probably going to come within $20 to $30 of that price point, then yeah, this is an easy purchase. For some reason, they say they don't want to discontinue the 4 Pro and they want to have both. I don't see it. I personally would probably never, ever purchase the 4 Pro if this comes out, but I don't know. Maybe you would, I guess. Let me know if for some reason you're looking at both and you're like, I really want the 4 Pro instead. I want to know. But the main reason I think the 5 is a bad idea right now is because they also released the Mini. And I feel like the Mini kind of stole the show here. It is using the exact same Snapdragon 865 CPU. It has a 3.7-inch screen at 1280 by 960, and it is also AMOLED. It's a 4x3 display. There's video out, and it's 4,000 milliamp hour battery, and it looks like a more ergonomic and rounded Retroid Pocket 2S, which is just awesome. Plus, it also has inset controls, which should make it a much more comfortable handheld than a lot of others. Between both of these devices, the Mini is the showstopper to me. This is the one that I am just so ready for. And I wish they had better colors, but I'll deal with what they have. But this feels like the handheld they could have just released now, waited a few months, and then came out with whatever Retroid Pocket 5 idea they had and separated them a little bit, because I feel like they're just releasing two of a similar handheld in a lot of same ways. And it just doesn't feel like they could have, it doesn't feel like they should have done that. It feels like they should have just waited on the 5, is my opinion on this. Okay, so let's do this. The pricing probably just came out, and we'll talk about now the pricing and what my thoughts are on it. My guess before I look at the pricing is $189 US for the Mini and $229 US for the Retroid Pocket 5. We'll see if I'm correct in a few seconds. Okay, and we are back with actual pricing, and oh boy, I was close on the Retroid Pocket Mini, but I was way off on the Retroid Pocket 5. So, the Retroid Pocket Mini is going to be $189 for the first 24 hours, and if you pre-order it, it'll be $194 after that, and then retail will be $199, and it starts at 6 gigabytes of RAM and 128 gigabytes of storage. The Retroid Pocket 5 is $199 US for the first 24 hours. Then it becomes $209 for pre-orders and then $219 for after that retail. Alternatively, you could purchase the combo, which is both of them. And it looks like the early bird pricing is $369 for the first 24 hours and then $389 for pre-order and $399 for retail. Okay, so first thoughts here. My pricing was way off, at least by $10 on the Retroid Pocket 5, but this is very aggressive. $10 between the two is, yeah, there's no other way to put this. This is kind of going to change the market quite a bit. They did really well here. The only hiccup here is obviously the 6 gigabytes of RAM on the Retroid Pocket 5, but I mean, for $199 US for what you're getting here, this is, yeah, this pricing, you could ignore everything I said before right now. So everything I talked about earlier, at these prices, these are no-brainers. I don't see where the Retroid Pocket 4 Pro fits in at this point with these prices, unless they're going to heavily discount that. But with what these are at, I mean, yeah, I can't see reviews going horribly wrong here, but you never know. As somebody who does review devices, I have to stay unbiased a little bit and wait till I get them in. But it's going to be tough to see this as anything other than a market shifting device for both of them. So we'll know the date later on today. I'm not going to be able to put it in the newscast, but I'll throw it into a pinned comment about the release dates and all that sort of thing. Or follow my YouTube, follow my Twitter. You'll get all that updates. But as far as pricing goes, this is as good as you could ask for on both devices. So if you're interested, I definitely keep my eyes peeled on these two devices for sure. If my videos have been helping you, consider supporting me on Patreon, or just give this video a like and a sub. You can also come join me on the Discord, and we talk all about these retro handhelds all the time. This is a very long newscast, so we're going to end it off here on games news because I had to talk about this. And I'm sorry, I know this is a long one, so bear with me. It's longer than I wanted it to be, but we're going to talk about Concord shutting down. This is the PlayStation exclusive game that lasted 2 weeks after release. Basic idea, nobody played it, nobody wanted it, so they are offering full refunds and shutting down the servers, and they are just done with Concord after 2 weeks of release. At peak, this game had 700 players. This game took 8 years to develop. Now, not obviously developing from the start at 8 years. I'm sure they went through ideas and all that, but 8 years. Who knows how many tens of millions of dollars? 700 players. This is the biggest blunder in the history of gaming that I could remember or think of. There is no other game that I can remember as this bad. And there are various examples over the years. You can look at Anthem, you can look at E.T., you could look at a whole bunch of other games, and nothing comes close to this in just sheer craziness of how quickly it was shut down. Look, I don't have a lot to say here, and I don't want to continually bash on this one because a lot of people are going to lose their jobs and all that sort of thing, but you had to have known, there had to have been some sort of indication throughout all of this time that this is not going to hit. This was not going to be a good idea, but I don't know. Whatever. It's amazing that something like this can happen still in 2024 with all of the data that you get. So anyways, it's shutting down. It is completely over. They are at least giving full refunds, unlike others in our space that aren't. But hey, Concord and PlayStation, good job. Way to offer full refunds for your mistakes. That's awesome. Appreciate you all for watching, and that's all from me, Kanamilla.